So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. We are very excited for today's presentation. It kicks off our nutrition awareness series for the month of March. My name is Kayla Rogers, and I'm an education and outreach coordinator for the Women's Fund. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Women's Fund, we are a not-for-profit organization located in Houston, and our mission is to provide women and girls with the tools they need to be advocates for their health. So we do this through focused seminars like today's presentation, as well as curriculum-based classes for both women and girls, and publications. Our services are free. If you're interested in learning more about our programs or downloading PDF versions of our publications, you can visit our website, thewomensfund.org. This link here is a link to the PDF version of our publications, but on our website, you can also find a form to fill out for physical copies if you are interested in that. Okay, so today we are very lucky to have Jacqueline De La Garza here. She is from Brighter Bites, and she will give a presentation called Brighter Choices. So a little bit about Jacqueline. She's an experienced program coordinator for Brighter Bites, an organization that specializes in elementary school nutrition education. Brighter Bites gives teachers, parents, and students nutrition education resources that make fresh fruits and vegetables more approachable. Driven by making information more easily accessible, her goals include increasing health awareness and serving communities throughout the Houston area. So Jacqueline, we are so happy to have you here today. I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to you at this point, and let me give you permission to share your screen. Okay, so you should be able to share now.
Got it. Let me go ahead and share. Okay, so thank you so much for the introduction. And I just want to thank the Women's Fund for giving me the opportunity on behalf of Brighter Bites to be here today and speak to you a little bit about Brighter Bites, what we do, and then we'll dive into some nutrition education. So to begin, just a little bit of more background on me and my role in Brighter Bites. So like Kayla said, I am a program coordinator. I joined the Brighter Bites team in 2018. I actually started off as a volunteer for the organization in the summer of 2018. One of my professors in my undergrad talked about Brighter Bites, so I got involved in volunteering, and then I was brought on to the team that fall, and I've been here ever since. So I'm going to give a little bit of backstory on Brighter Bites, who we are, our mission, our goals, and then we'll get into the nutrition education component of the presentation. So the Brighter Bites mission is to create communities of health through fresh food. That is our mission. And then this is just a little blurb, but just a little bit more information. So our goal is to change behavior among children and their families to prevent obesity and to overall achieve long-term health. Brighter Bites is an evidence-based multi-component elementary school, preschool, and summer school program. And we utilize fresh fruits and produce along with nutrition education and along with consistent exposure to recipes and messaging around fresh food. So our program during the regular school year is 16 weeks, and in the summer it's 8 weeks. So our research, everything is, like I said, research-based. So our research with Brighter Bites models provides consistent opportunities for families and participants to practice healthier behaviors in school and at home. And then on the next slide, I have a video that I'm going to play for you guys. It's short and it's going to give you a little bit more background on who we are as an organization.
I was participating in a fruit and vegetable co-op with my little boys, Drew and Nathan, and I watched their eating habits dramatically change just from having this consistent access to fresh produce. And one day Drew was at a birthday party and he called me over and he said, "Mommy, do I have to eat this?" And it was cake. And I thought, you know what, if I can have this change in my house, how do I bring the same change to underserved communities that lack access to fresh produce, but childhood obesity and other related illnesses are really high? And that's how Brighter Bites started.
3 out of 10 children are overweight or obese, and in low-income communities, it's even higher. So this next generation has a lower life expectancy by 5 years as compared to us. For that to happen in a developed nation is just mind-blowing.
Food banks have been around for a little over 3 decades. And I can tell you that when we started, we very much thought of ourselves as in the calorie business. And it took a while, frankly, for us to admit that not everything we're supplying was causing the benefit we were hoping for. One of the things we learned is that hunger is not some isolated issue. It's part of larger poverty and low income problems.
People talk about the food desert issue. The other issue we have is food swamps. Food swamps are high density of fast food restaurants. So you not only have low access to healthy food, you have high access to unhealthy food.
Brighter Bites is a nonprofit that delivers fresh produce to families through schools and other locations where kids are. We are trying to change their eating habits and create communities of health through fresh food. The great thing about Brighter Bites is we didn't reinvent the wheel on anything. All we did was come up with a formula, produce distribution, nutrition education, and a fun food experience.
Here's the difference maker. Not only are we giving them produce, we have a program that teaches them how to use it, how to eat it. We also have a program that tracks their progress to understand if there's behavioral changes in the kids. Are there shopping changes, which we're pushing even harder? Teaching kids how to eat and changing the manner in which we grow up and consume food. That's pretty good something that you want to be behind.
It works in a way that's more than just consumption. It's actually bringing people together. Parents are going to schools and meeting teachers for the very first time. Kids and parents are cooking together. Scratch cooking at home doubled for Brighter Bites families.
Something that we're really proud of is we have a centralized data platform, and we look at it in almost real time. So we know exactly who came into our program, when they came in, have they been coming every week, and we track it at every school, at every week, at every site.
The big engine that makes this feasible is the giant flow of surplus produce, which can be done in most places in the country eventually, many of them today.
If you can, then you must. And by the grace of God, I woke up today and tonight I can have for dinner whatever I want. Other people can't. I want them to have the same opportunity that I did. It's the American dream, but you see it slipping away from a lot of people. And that's the power of Brighter Bites, is to have a vision and spread it first to a community, and then to our state, and then to our nation.
The great thing about Brighter Bites is it's so scalable. This formula works, and we know that it can be replicated anywhere, anytime. The same need that's in Houston is in New York. And that's pretty surreal that the need exists everywhere. People are lacking access and they don't know what to do with fresh produce. So it's just gone away from their lives, and we're bringing it back. And we're gonna bring it back everywhere we can go.
Okay, so that was just a short video about Brighter Bites and a little bit of background information. So they talked about it a little bit in the video, and obviously that video was pre-COVID. Essentially, a lot of the logistics have changed, how we're able to, be in schools, and the distribution has changed a bit. The physical component of like the nutrition education, being in the classrooms, handing out these resources to parents is not there. but our Brighter Bites formula is still there and we're still making it work. So with produce distribution and nutrition education and fun food experience, we intend to bring it full circle. So the kids in the classrooms are getting nutrition lessons from their teachers, and then we are giving the resources to the parents in order for them to be able to use this produce effectively, for them to eventually get to the point where they themselves go and seek out the produce and know how to use it. And then that's where the fun food experience comes in, with recipes and constant exposure, getting the kids to try, you know, a green smoothie and getting them to try a salad that might have Brussels sprouts, but they don't know. So today we're going to take a deeper dive into the nutrition education component that is so important to our program. We're going to start with the topic of eating the rainbow. So Eat the Rainbow is one of our tip sheets, and I'm going to refer to the website quite a bit because that's where all of our resources are. We have tip sheets, we have how-tos, and then we also have a whole recipe bank. But I'll talk about that a little bit throughout the presentation. So to begin, Eat the Rainbow, of course, is eating a variety of fruits and vegetables to make sure you're getting all the nutrients you need. So we really break it down into color sections because it's easy for everyone to understand no matter what age. So we can start with red. So I've just listed some examples of red fruits or vegetables, but obviously there's so many more than the ones that are listed. So to begin, let's say apples, cranberries, red onion, red bell peppers, strawberries, raspberries. Those are all red category fruits and vegetables, and they're high in vitamin C, high in antioxidants. So the health benefits associated with incorporating this color into your diet is heart health. And that's really something simple that we use to get it across to kids is, you know, red heart, and incorporating these into your diets will over time, you know, increase your health, specifically heart health. And then let's go into the orange and yellow categories. So you have apricots, you have grapefruits, you have lemons, mangoes, you have yellow squash, yellow bell pepper. There's also a variety in here. And these tend to be high in vitamin A, vitamin C, folate, and antioxidants, which in turn turns into health benefits that help with the immune system, the heart health, vision, skin, and bone health. And I know also for me, at least growing up, I remember always hearing like to eat your carrots because your eyesight would get better. And yes, there's some correlation there between eating these orange colored items and your vision health. So with everything that we talk about, I just want to say that behavior change is something that happens over time. This is nothing that needs to go, you know, from 0 to 100 or overnight. This is something that you can start incorporating little by little into your diet. If you're already not incorporating it, I know for me, I really didn't think about it until I broke it down into colors of, you know, I regularly cook with red bell peppers and yellow bell peppers. So that's one way of incorporating it. You can incorporate these items into your smoothies with, you know, frozen strawberries, frozen mango. So there's a lot of opportunities throughout the day to incorporate it. But sometimes we just don't think about it because we never really separate the colors that we're using in our everyday life. So we'll go on to the next portion of Eat the Rainbow. So this portion is green, and then that tends to be the more intimidating color I have found. Amongst kids, specifically teenagers, adults, or kids have the concept that, you know, only adults eat these colored items. So for greens, we have avocados, we have green apples, honeydew, broccoli, asparagus, we have spinach, we have artichoke, we have tons, we have green grapes, because, you know, there's so many varieties of grapes. And the green category by far has the highest like nutritional values, as in vitamin E, vitamin K, potassium, calcium, antioxidants, and folate. And they are also related with health benefits such as the immune system, heart health, vision, and bone health. So the greens is a little bit more intimidating, but I think you can definitely make it work. We have a bunch of recipes online for smoothies. We have one that is in relation to the Hulk. So that's usually how we sell it to the kids, like, oh, you want to try this? So there's just different ways of incorporating it. For instance, also Brussels sprouts is an item that maybe when you ask somebody the first time, they're like, no, I won't eat a Brussels sprout. But if you make it in different ways, if you learn how to prepare it in different manners, maybe you will enjoy it. This goes for both adults and kids. I know personally, I didn't have a good Brussels sprout experience until I was adult and I knew how to prepare it. So if you go to our website, you're able to search on the how-to section. The how-to section is broken down by each item. And let's say, for instance, that you don't know how to look or pick a Brussels sprout. That how-to sheet breaks it down, how to select one when you're in the stores, how to prepare it, and then the different methods that you can cook it. So that's a great resource. And then we can talk about blue and purple. So blackberries, blueberries, eggplant. There's so many in this category, and they are related to blood vessel health. So they're really high in antioxidants. So we really want to make sure that we incorporate blue and purple into our diet. I think this could be something as simple as adding blueberries to a smoothie or having a side of blueberries with yogurt in the morning. Eggplant was something that I traditionally didn't grow up eating. It wasn't a vegetable that was present in my household. So there's just different items that maybe when you go to the store, now that you see it, you can think, okay, let me purchase one. Let me see how I can prepare it and see if I enjoy it. And maybe it's a one-time thing, maybe it's several times that you try it, but I think just taking the leap and purchasing things that are a little bit outside of your comfort zone is a great way to start, just so that you're keeping it nice and evolved, and you never know what you're gonna like. And then last but not least, we have the white, tan, and brown section. So this is bananas, potatoes, garlics, onions, and garlic and onion was not something that I ever viewed as a vegetable. I viewed it as, oh, that's just the preparation for seasoning that you add, but it's also a vegetable. So the health benefits associated with the white, tan, and brown are heart health. So like I said, sometimes we might not think that we're incorporating all of it, but when you look at it, you might be. If you use saute stuff frequently, you're probably already using garlic and onion. You're probably using, yellow squash, green squash. If you threw in eggplant with that, you would be adding the blue and purple. So there's just a lot of ways to incorporate color into our meals, our snacks, even our desserts. So fruits are a popular dessert amongst kids. We have basically Eat the Rainbow skewer, and it's just taking one fruit from each of the categories and putting it on a skewer, and there you go. So you can get creative with how you want to incorporate all these colors and what works for you and your family. So we'll move on to the next section, that is Eat in Season. So this tip is going to kind of go into the next two categories, and I just wanted to give like a brief introduction on eating in season. So eating in season, eating in season. So when you purchase fresh fruits and vegetables that are in season, they are nutritious and affordable. And I think affordable is the key here. So there are produce items that are available year round, right? So these are items that the price tends to stay more stable. For instance, we have apples, celery, lettuce, cabbage, bananas, lemons, onions, potatoes. Those are pretty much our staple finds in our groceries, and their price doesn't tend to fluctuate as much because they are available year round. So those are our typical items. And I also listed things that are available in springtime, since spring is upon us. And I know for me, I get excited specifically for strawberries because the price goes down and they're just better quality during their growing season. Online, we have the whole entire tip sheet of each in season that breaks it down into spring, summer, fall, winter, and then the year-round one. So another popular item that I think people really remember on the seasons is watermelon. So watermelon is grown in the summertime, and typically that is when it's less inexpensive. You can find a really big watermelon at a good price. So eating in season is very important. If you want to start incorporating more fresh fruits and vegetables, just keeping in mind when you're purchasing it and if it's a reasonable price for what you're buying. And then we'll go into the grocery tips. Okay, so that's why I started off with the eating in season and just giving you a couple of ideas of the basic year-round produce, and then the ones that are broken down into the different seasons. So keeping costs low by selecting fruits and vegetables that are in season. Another tip that we give is buying frozen. So there's nothing wrong with buying frozen produce. There's a couple things that you do want to look out for, but overall, buying frozen fruits and vegetables have the same nutritional value as if you were to buy it fresh. And you can stretch your budget, and they do tend to last a little longer because you're able to freeze it. So frozen fruit is essentially picked during its growing season, so when it's at its best quality, and then it's frozen. That's the only difference, really. So when you're purchasing the frozen fruits, you want to look for no sugar added. That can be something that is added to the product. So you want to make sure that you're reading the label and just look for fruits that are in their natural state with no sugar added. And then for vegetables, same thing goes for that. You want to avoid extra sauces, any added sodium, or any additional rice or pasta. So, sometimes you can find broccoli with Alfredo pasta in the frozen section. So if we're trying to keep it a little healthier, we just want to avoid those type of things and buy the frozen broccoli in its natural state. And then canned foods, it's another great option. There's nothing wrong with purchasing canned foods. If anything, it's budget friendly. It has a really long shelf life, and it can shorten food prep time. So my example that I put is corn, and this goes for beans and other things as well, but corn, if you bought it in its fresh produce state, you would have to obviously bring it home, you would have to wash it, cook it in whichever way you preferred, boiling or on the grill or however you like, and then you would have to remove it from the husk. And if you buy it already in the can, that's obviously shortening your food prep time, therefore you have more time in general. So with canned foods, with fruits, you want to look for items that have no added sugar or no syrup. And then you want to look for fruit in 100% fruit juice or in water. And then when we're talking about vegetables that are in cans, you want to look for no salt added and low sodium, which now is pretty common to find in your local grocery stores. And that kind of jumps all of us into healthy on a budget. So with the canned goods, for instance, or even the frozen items, you can look for the store brand in order to save money. It's usually the same quality that you're getting, except you're not paying for the brand. And so therefore you get the best values. But this can also go for other staple pantry items. This can go for whole grain. But specifically the canned and frozens is a good way to start. And then we have the shop in bulk section. So this tip can go for a lot of things as well. I know if you're, let's say you have a recipe that you're looking for and it requires one spice and you don't have that spice. So instead of going and purchasing the full can of the spice, you can go to the bulk section of your local grocery store and only purchase what you're going to use of that specific spice if it's available. The same thing goes for, nuts, dried fruits, lentils, beans. Sometimes when you're in the stores, you're paying for the brand name that is on that label versus in the bulk section, you're not doing that. You're just paying for the item itself. So that's one way to save money. Kind of going on the bulk section, if you want to purchase things in bulk, not necessarily in the bulk section, that's a great way to save money as well. For instance, pineapples, if they're on sale and you want to stock up on them, you can purchase maybe 2, 3 at a time because they're at a lower cost right now. You can chop them up and freeze them yourself. And that goes for any produce item, just knowing how to store them. And that's a great option. I know I personally do that. If I know I'm not going to be able to use an item before it basically starts to go bad, I will chop it up and freeze it. That goes for my bananas and so many other produce. And then last but not least, make a list. So you can get distracted at the grocery store, or there's other things that you might want to purchase, but it's not something you necessarily need. So making a list just assures that you're staying on track of what you need to purchase versus what you want to purchase. And then also, don't go to the grocery store hungry. It's just not a good idea. You'll start to want things or think of things that you might not even need. So to reduce costs, I suggest just sticking to your list and going to the grocery store on a full stomach. Along with, healthy on a budget, couponing is a great opportunity as well. And there are so many coupons in store, or it just depends where you're shopping that you're able to use. Maybe you can, purchase one item, you get this other item free. So there's so many ways in reducing costs, but in terms of applying the fresh fruits and vegetables and incorporating those into your everyday life, I definitely recommend buying frozen, buying canned, or if there's a sale, buying in bulk and just freezing what you're not able to use. You can also pickle items that you're not able to use and store those. So there's just so many options, and I think there can kind of be a little scare about using fresh produce. But nonetheless, we have so many resources on our website, and I can talk all day about all the recipes that we have, but if you go onto our website at www.brighterbites.org, we have a tips and tools tab. And in that tips and tools tab is where I pulled this information from. This information is available to you and to anyone who wants to use it. We have a database of recipes available for you. We have how-tos. The how-tos come in handy, and I personally use them for my life. Just a little backstory, I didn't really grow up with a lot of variety of vegetables in my house or fruit, really. There was just kind of the staples that were purchased because we didn't want to spend money on other items that we didn't know how to use. So if you look at the how-tos, they're able to tell you exactly how to pick it, what is the nutritional value from them, and then how to prepare it and the different methods that you can cook them. So how-tos, I highly recommend you check out. And then the tip sheets are all of the information that I gave you today. We even have different ones on smart meals, how to eat smart when you're eating out, mindful eating, tips on gardening and different items. So there's so much that goes into incorporating fresh foods into your life. And we just want to really make sure that everybody feels equipped and empowered to go into the grocery stores and purchase and use these items to its fullest potential. And if you don't have the Brighter Bites app, you can go ahead and download the app. So this is a little bit of what I talked about for the website. This is just now in app form. So if you want to download our app, it's download our mobile app today at brighterbites.org/BB app. So on the left-hand side, you can see some of our recipes. We have an avocado cilantro yogurt dip. And with our recipes, we break it down into how many servings and the average cost, because we know that is important. And then on the right-hand side, you can see our recipe bank, and you're able to search it by produce or meal type. So for instance, let's say you have a lot of bananas that you need to use up, you could simply click on the banana section and it's going to show you all of the produce, all of the recipes that include bananas in it. And then if you wanted to search by meal type, we have smoothies, we have obviously dips, meals, and then we have desserts. So that is my presentation, and I'm open to any questions that you have at the moment. So this is just an overall introduction into how to introduce fresh produce into your life. Behavior change is something that happens over time, like I said, so there's no pressure to go out and incorporate all these items immediately. We just want to give you the resources and equip anyone, any age, to be able to feel confident in going into a grocery store and purchasing what they want, what they need. And hopefully, this overall impacts your life and impacts your health and your family's health as well. So if anybody has questions.
Thank you, Jackie, for that presentation. I was taking down notes to make sure I go and visit the website, because you guys have so much on there that is going to be extremely helpful. I know personally, there are certain fruits or vegetables that I see and I don't buy them because I'm afraid, what if I take this home and I have no idea what to do with it?
Yeah.
So that is something that I'm definitely going to be looking into. We are going to open up the floor for questions at this point. If you would feel more comfortable unmuting yourself to ask your question, you're more than welcome to do that. Or if you would like to submit your question in the chat, you can do that as well. I'm going to get started with the first question, though. So for the families who you work with, so they will receive the fresh fruits or fresh produce for up to 24 weeks, correct?
So it's 16 weeks. So we do it based on school year.
Okay.
And we serve currently, I believe, 48 elementary schools in the Houston area only. And then we obviously have our partners or our other cities, which are, Dallas, Austin, New York. But Houston specifically serves elementary schools right now. We're at 48. And in the summer, it looks a little different. We're usually at ACE programs or summer camps that sign up. Obviously, due to COVID, summer looks a little different now. It's not what everything used to be. Our whole program in that sense looks a little different. So it's 16 weeks. So we break it down to 8 weeks in the fall and then 8 weeks in the spring.
Okay. And so you work a lot with schools, like you mentioned. If there is a family that is interested in being involved in the program, but it's not at their child's school, is there still a way for them to participate?
Yes. Well, it would be something that their school needs to apply for through our program. So yes, it is specific to the kids and families that are currently at the schools that we're serving. But we have an application on our website that schools are more than welcome to apply to. And then that's how schools are rotated in and out. So our program is 3 years on, 3 years off. So schools are constantly rolling out. And then that's how we're able to bring on new schools and new communities that want to apply for our program.
Okay, awesome. That's good to know. Okay, so the next question that I have, this is probably something that we could find on your website, But do you have any advice for how to properly wash fresh produce? I know I sometimes have questions myself, and it's questions that we get often, but how do you properly wash your produce?
Yeah, so that's something that we have to hit home on quite a bit. So we do have a tip sheet on our website, and I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what it says. So we might need to look at, go to the website to see it, but that is something that we highly encourage all of our families, all of the produce that you receive. I know one thing for me that I just never thought about, or I didn't grow up doing this, was even like, let's say for example, a lime, that's not something that you're necessarily ingesting. It's more like something that you're putting into, but even when you're cutting the skin of a lime or an orange, there's bacteria on the outside that could go through once you're cutting into it. So we will recommend that you wash all of your produce, even if you're not going to be consuming the skin of it, because when you're preparing it, you don't know what's on it, and it could eventually get into your food. So I'm pretty sure we have a tip sheet on exactly what measurements to use for the things that you can add besides water. But that's probably on our website.
Yeah, I agree with you there. That's something that I never really thought. I always grew up washing like, apples, but it never like cantaloupe or limes or avocados. Yeah, that stuff never crossed my mind back then. It does now, but yeah, no, you're
Yeah,
definitely not alone.
same here.
Okay. Are there any tips that you can provide for picking good produce? Going to the grocery store, not only are there a lot of options, but also like if I'm picking an avocado, how do I know that it's a good avocado?
Yeah, so one of our culinary associates, she's really informative, and with avocados specifically, okay, you obviously have the avocado. Yes, there is the, I don't want to say it's a myth, but you can also feel the avocado. But another way to do it is at the top of the avocado where they pick it from, there's usually still like the stem on it. So if that is green, that means that the avocado is still not ready. Basically, if you're able to remove it from the avocado, that means that the avocado is ripe enough for you to eat now. So that's one way to do it. And I think that's the best tip. I wouldn't suggest squeezing it, but that's one of the ways that you can check by. If you're simply able to remove the stem from the avocado, then you should be able to purchase it and it's ready to eat.
That's a good tip. Yeah, I never like to pick them out. I always make whoever I'm with pick them, because if they don't turn out to be good, then I can say it's not my fault,
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked a lot about experimenting with different foods and finding different ways to prepare them. Do you have any tips or advice for maybe like really picky eaters? I know kids and vegetables don't always
Yeah.
they don't always want to eat vegetables. So do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, so there's one recipe that is my go-to recipe and for my household, and it's basically your simple pasta. So just like your whole wheat pasta with your tomato sauce. If you want to, add a meat to it, go ahead. But I finely chop up squash, green squash, and bell peppers. And I know if a picky eater, they'll probably be able to pick it out, but it's one way of incorporating stuff where it's not so obvious, like versus chunks of it inside of the pasta. And if it's something that they already like, it's kind of like, oh, that's just part of the sauce, like, go ahead. But that's one way of incorporating it. And that's personally my household's favorite way. I believe it's called pasta primavera. And it's just pasta, but you're adding a little bit of vegetable into it. We also have a unbelievable brownie. So you're putting beets into a dessert, And we actually had kind of like a blind taste test of it. Well, not a blind taste test. We knew what was in it, but it tastes really good. Of course, it's not going to be exactly like a brownie that you purchase at the store, but it's very similar and it's a good hit. So my suggestion would be to basically find ways to incorporate it that it's not so obvious. Smoothies is a great way of doing that. I know sometimes the color can throw kids off, but you just got to find ways to make it fun. Like, oh, if it's bright green, just say, you know, the Hulk drinks this, it's really good. And with kids, it's one day they might like something, 2 days later you give it to them, they might hate it. And it's kind of like a trend with them. So for kids, it's just constant exposure and finding the way that they like it, but also that, you know, you like it too. You don't want to accommodate everything to their like. So it's just constant exposure when it comes to kids. And I think by the end of a couple weeks, they'll be used to it and they'll like it. It's just getting to figure out the way that they like things prepared.
Awesome. Yeah. Even adults sometimes that I'll talk to. I have some of my friends, and if we're eating together or when we would eat together, there would be like a Brussels sprout. And they're like, oh my gosh, you eat Brussels sprouts? And I'm like, you don't eat Brussels sprouts?
Yeah.
So yeah, even getting adults to try certain foods can be tricky sometimes. So it's always nice to like figure out ways that you can kind of squeeze that in. I'll have to look for the beet brownie because
Yeah.
that sounds really interesting. Okay, so another question that I have has to do with farmers markets, which I don't know if you'll know the answer to this or not, but is it cheaper to buy produce from like a local farmers market versus a grocery store? Or do you just kind of have to compare?
I think you need to compare prices. I think it does depend on the farmer's market. I know for the state of Texas for a time period, if SNAP was partnered with the local farmer's market, families could use their SNAP benefits at the market and even get like if you spent $10, you got $10 credit to also spend at the farmer's market. So I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a price saving. It's more maybe quality, and you're obviously supporting like local growers. So yeah, I think it just depends. But I know for a time period, SNAP was partnering with Houston local farmer markets.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I did not know that. I don't really, I don't live in Houston, so
Yeah.
But yeah, I did not know that. That's pretty cool. Okay, so what do you say? I don't know if you get this question, but sometimes we'll get this question. So I figured I would just ask. But for people who are concerned about the loss of nutrients whenever they cook their foods.
Yes, I would say there's not a big of a difference between like the state that it comes in and once you cook it. Yes, there is some nutritional value, but I wouldn't let that deter you from still cooking it the way that you like it and the way that you want to prepare it. It really just depends on the vegetable too. But yeah, it's not a very significant amount. So I wouldn't let that deter you from cooking it the way that you like.
Right. Thank you. Okay. And then another question that I have, I'm just kind of curious. I know that there were, it was mentioned in the video, like food swamps and food deserts. Do you hear about those often when, if you ask, you know, why is it that you don't eat enough, or not enough, but why is it, what keeps you from eating, you know, fresh fruits or produce or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for the inner city area of Houston, it is something depending on the location that you live in, how close your nearest grocery store is. If you don't have the ability to drive to a grocery store, obviously that's a whole trip out of itself. And that is something that happens. We also do notice more of the food swamp trends in the inner cities. There's just so many more options, and those options are just closer or maybe more accessible in proximity compared to the grocery store. So it really just depends on the areas. Obviously, in rural areas, that is a prominent issue, getting to a grocery store in a distance without it affecting time, gas, etc. So it is an issue. I don't want to say it's probably one of like the #1 issues contributing to why people choose not to purchase fresh produce, but it does have a contribution. And it really just depends what city you're in, what area you're looking at. There's just so many options nowadays on where you can buy food, and it's not all necessarily from the grocery store. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question that I have for you is, I always ask this at the end of presentations, but if you could just let us know what is like the one thing or the one piece of information that you would like for us to walk away from this presentation with today.
Yeah, the one thing I would have to say is be kind to yourself and your family in terms of creating this behavior change, because I think that's something that can really impact someone if they're worried about it, if they're worried about, you know, their family's overall health. Be gentle on yourself. This is something that happens over time. I am in my mid-20s, and I would say I've barely started exploring other options of produce that I purchased on my own. And I know it wasn't something that I was instilled with. So it doesn't matter what age you're at, you can definitely start it, and it can be a slow start. It's just getting basically your feet wet and, you know, deciding to pick up that one fruit that you've never tried before, taking it home, seeing if you like it. If you don't, okay, great. Let's move on to the next one and pick up another item. It can literally just be one item, but it's just making that step to an overall healthy life. But it takes time. So just be gentle on yourself.
That is great advice. Yeah, especially if you're not used to eating some of these things, getting started down that path can definitely be kind of difficult. So I think that's advice that everyone can use right now. Be kind to yourself, because it is a journey. It's not easy at all. Absolutely. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and share my screen now. I just have a few closing slides here that I would like to get through. Okay, so if you walk away from today's presentation and you have questions or comments, you can always email us at healtheducator@thewomensfund.org. I will be sending out a follow-up email with a link to a survey for today's presentation. We would love your feedback. Let us know what you liked, what we could improve on, topics that you are interested in. And then as far as upcoming presentations go, tomorrow we have a presentation over mental health and nutrition. And then Friday, we have a presentation over physical activity. So I highly encourage you to visit our website, thewomensfund.org, to find upcoming events and things that we have going on, as well as following us on our social media sites. We post there often about upcoming events. We celebrate special days. We're going to be posting about Women's History Month this month. So I do encourage you to follow us on our social media platforms. Jacqueline, I want to thank you again so much for joining us today. This presentation was extremely helpful. I know that I am definitely going to be utilizing your website and looking at some of those tips and how-tos and recipes for sure. And I hope that everyone else on the presentation will do the same.
All right, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.